restaurant workers and the restaurant industry has been hit the hardest. With the uncertainty, with the on and off of we can just shut you guys down, open you guys back up. It wasn't just that everything changed all at once and that was terrifying, but it was not knowing what was to come, not knowing how things were going to continue to change, kind of just, in a sense, dangling. My name is Michaela Garcia, and I'm 25 years old, and I have been working in the restaurant industry since I was about 18. When everything really kind of came into the forefront of this is real and this is something that we all are going to be affected by, it was really scary. It felt like a transition that you don't choose. My wages were definitely cut. My tips were, reduced by 50%. And so that was scary and sad. And I didn't have to get laid off, but also the people that were getting unemployment at the time were making, at that point in time when it first started, much more than I was making. There have been a few times where I've had to quarantine. They were all work related. It was when a coworker contracted COVID. That looks like a 10-day period where you just don't work. During the summer, it was actually insanely busy all the time. People were waiting 2 hours for food, but it was also kind of scary because you know that we're still in, the middle of a pandemic, and there are tourists, you're checking people's IDs from all over, different states coming here still. And it was very nice, obviously, to have the business, and the tips were really good during the summer. But also I've been exposed to people from, 5, 6 different states. Restaurant workers, they're just, I just feel for a lot of people in Bend that are restaurant workers, and I'm lucky that I'm at the place that I am. Just realizing that even though, you come in and you see us smiling and you see us happy and ready to greet you, ready to serve you, just taking that step back to look at the restaurant and think of what has gone on during the pandemic in this restaurant with the people inside. We're people with feelings and lives that have been affected, and kind of just having compassion and empathy within our interactions and just trying to show, love to fellow human beings, that, we're all in this together.
There's a lot of protocols you have to follow for a classroom environment, and there's not a lot of protocols that are standard for a woodshop environment. Yeah, Mr. S, Mr. Savatelli, that's what they call me. You ask them, hey, what do you have available to you at home? And they go, a ruler. And you go, okay, well, let's see what we can do with the ruler. So now that we're back in the shop, we have all these resources available to us. My name is Cameron Savatelli. This is LaPine High School. I teach here as a forestry and manufacturing technology teacher. This is my 3rd year in this profession. I didn't know what to think, I kind of built these programs on really emphasizing the hands-on application and the collaborative aspects, and all of a sudden I had to figure out how to teach woodworking, natural resources, soil sciences, watersheds, animal, flora and fauna, construction, all these things through a computer screen. I'm kind of an amateur YouTuber / teacher at this point. You run into class and the kids don't have their cameras on, they don't want to be there. You're talking to a wall, there's no engagement. So you really have to get creative. What I will tell you is all those little setbacks have made me a better teacher as a whole and given me a ton of technological resources that I can now use to supplement the in-person learning that we're headed towards. The main learning comes from doing. At first, I wanted to send out kits with wood and nails and, let's send home a birdhouse kit so the kids can do something hands-on. Then you run into some hurdles with that, some liability issues, some parental supervision issues. You run into logistical setbacks. What we do as educators doesn't compare to what the kids are going through as students. And so anything you could do to help reach out to those kids and give them even an inkling of that support, that community that we have here, we were willing as educators to do that. The kids are the reason we're here. The kids are the reason we do it. And as soon as they get back, it's like a jolt of energy. And we have sort, sweep, sanitize. So that's what we do at the end of the day. Keeping them motivated and giving them that incentive and something to look forward to. Even though as an educator, I had no idea what to expect, it helps. And for me, I've seen the most enthusiasm and happiness for students coming back in person now than I ever did before, because now they understand how important these are and how much they love to be here for these classes. And that makes my job worth it.
Seen a lot of ups and downs, the crash in 2008, but nothing like this. I'm Debbie Marterano. I'm with RE/MAX Key Properties, and I've been in the business for about 34 years, all in Bend. This time last year, we were all at a RE/MAX convention that they put on every year in Las Vegas. We got back to the office with all this wonderful information on how we can do a better job for our clients, and then everything came to a screeching halt. The office closed, we all had to move home, and that's when the pivot began. We started using 360-degree tour videos. Matterport, it can do a cross-cut section of a home. It's like it takes the roof off and you can look down, walking through a home with your buyer on FaceTime, showing all the little nooks and crannies and details. Then I had to follow behind my clients, ask them not to touch anything, and if they did, I had to be there to wipe it off. And the joke was I've cleaned more houses selling real estate than I have sold them, but that's okay. It was what we needed to do to protect the client and to protect the buyers. The first 30 days is when it was the slowest and everybody was kind of on hold, not knowing what they were going to do. And then after that, well, it's when everybody bought toilet paper. They all went out and bought toilet paper, and then all of a sudden they decided they needed houses to put the toilet paper in. We saw about a 78% increase from out of state, San Diego, LA, New York, Seattle, all trying to come to Central Oregon, to a more remote area. We also had the lowest number of cases at that time, and it brought people in by the flocks. Interest rates dropped significantly. That got buyers going, oh boy, a buyer that maybe couldn't afford it now could. The market picked up, it started to get busier and busier, inventory dropped, sellers decided not to sell because where will I go? Or I'm too nervous having people in my house, or I'm gonna wait till this is over, never thinking that it would be a full year before it would be over, and then some. It's not like you're buying a roll of paper towels, it's a lot of money. And so sometimes for the first time, you're meeting that client for the very first time. Well, now with the mask on, they don't even know what you look like unless you have your picture on your card. You miss that whole communication. Now with the properties being sold within 4 days, and you're standing in line just to get in to see the home, you've got about 10 minutes to look at a home. And it's hard. It's hard to, some people are buying them sight unseen, virtually. Where it's really changed is for the buyers. When you have one property and 32 people looking at the same property, all trying to buy the exact same property, you could be standing in the driveway waiting, and an offer's already been accepted. Picking up the phone and calling that agent to tell them that their offer was not accepted is not a fun thing. I've seen frustration, I've seen anger, I've seen tears. I've seen agents that have, myself included, that have worked for their buyers where they've missed out 6, 7, 8 times. And sometimes there's resignation where they go, we're done, we're just gonna wait till this is over. And who knows when that will be. It's just not the best way to buy real estate. It should be a happy experience. It should be a well thought out experience. It should be, you know, something that you fondly remember. And as an agent, you feel guilty because you want, I mean, you're selling the American dream. You want it so bad for them. We're used to this every day, but not at this level. I did think that, you know, after the crash, I thought, okay, that was probably the toughest time. And I made it through it, and never in a million years did I think that this would happen. I thought that it would slow down, but never anticipated it ramping back up the way it did. And how everybody rethought how they live in their home, how school works in their home, how keeping their sanity works in their home. What we really expected to be a downturn turned out to be one of the craziest years we've ever seen.
Early January, we were kind of like, oh, that's interesting. By February, we're kind of starting to get a little more nervous. Mid to late March, it was full on for us, especially in the ICU. My name's Callie Seisler. I've been a nurse here at St. Charles for about 6 years. I'm a master's prepared nurse and been a nurse about 9 or 10 years. When we normally take care of a flu patient or a patient with a different strain of coronavirus, there's not a lot of evidence out there that if you catch it, you could get so sick that you could die. We were hearing that in the beginning. Italy, they had lots of doctors and nurses dying. So that was certainly scary in the beginning. It didn't change for us in the ICU. We do a lot of aerosolizing procedures. We intubate people, do bronchoscopies. So we always were in full airborne in the ICU. Full PAPRs, we wore mostly PAPRs and N95s, full isolation gowns. So we had that the whole time. Some of the things that we did for the COVID patients are the same as any other patient that had a serious respiratory illness. Every day was kind of new data coming out and new treatments, new ways to take care of them. It's been a steady amount of patients with COVID since last March. I think we had a little lull in maybe May, but otherwise I don't remember a day we haven't had COVID patients in the ICU. I would say the most stressful part, though, has been the visitor restrictions for us as nurses, because in the beginning we had no visitors allowed, and that's really, really hard on your patient, and especially towards end of life. Not only are you a nurse and doing all of your regular tasks and taking care of them, but you're also kind of being their support person and making sure you really advocate for them. We always advocate for our patients, but we're going above and beyond because they don't have anyone else there to do that for them. So I would say that's been a little bit stressful, just trying to be that emotional support person on top of being that patient's nurse. We've definitely had some amazing saves and gotten some people back to their lives, which is amazing. And then the alternative being, not everyone has survived it or made it out, and that's been really hard and been hard to be there for those patients as they're passing and don't have any family there with them. It's very frustrating to hear people saying it's not real or it doesn't exist, because when you're right up there in the middle of it, holding someone's hand who's dying, and then you're hearing that there's people out there that don't believe it's real, it's kind of a gut punch, because we see the reality of it every day, and you wish that you could kind of bring them in and say, how can you deny this? This is right here in front of us. And the majority of our community here has been really supportive. We've had so many deliveries and drop-offs of food, and I see most people wearing masks, which has been amazing to know that people are thinking about us and that our community cares. And that kind of helps dispense, when we do have people that are saying it's not real and I don't care, to know that there's plenty of people out there that do care and are grateful for what we're doing. And that certainly makes it easier to keep going every day.
Thought we'd give this Facebook group format a try. My name is Morgan Schmidt, and I'm one of the pastors here at First Presbyterian Church. Beyond that, I help lead the Pandemic Partners Facebook page here in Bend. I really had no idea what I was doing. People kind of asked me, what was your social media expertise? How did you get it going? And I'm like, it was all pictures of my dog before March 12th. And so it was a crash course in social media organizing. Started Pandemic Partners Bend with this hope that it could create a space virtually where people could seek help and offer help to their neighbors. And it was really that simple. It happened in a staff meeting as we were kind of brainstorming. I think my colleague Becca said something about how to keep families connected and mentioned we should have families be like each other's pandemic partners. The timing of it felt really vital to people. I'm in awe of this community. I'm in awe of people's generosity. I'm in awe of people's willingness to be vulnerable and ask for what they need. It's taken the community to make the magic happen. Anytime you can connect people to actual people and remove the boundaries of maybe preconceived notions or bias or these caricatures that we hold of people who are different than us, you start to really see another person's humanity and dignity, and that it's not so different than your own. Maybe somebody who lives on Aubrey Butte in an affluent part of town would bring a propane canister to someone living off of China Hat. It changes everyone. When we meet another human being, if we're truly open to that person, they're going to have an impact on me, I'm going to have an impact on them. That makes all of us richer. That makes all of us more whole in some way. We've been really intentional as moderators, kind of guiding this community in making sure we connect a lot of the tragedies, a lot of the needs related to coronavirus with pandemics of sorts that have been going on for a very long time. Poverty and income inequality has been around for a very long time. Homelessness has been around for a very long time. Racism has been around a really long time, and we know that people that are already experiencing those kinds of hardships or oppressions are impacted by a worldwide pandemic like coronavirus even more than people who are in the dominant culture. And so we've been really careful to articulate that as we go along, that it's all connected in a sense. There will be a lot of challenges as we return to some semblance of what was before. I'm not going to say normal, because I think we are all forever changed in many ways. But I hope that we take this new awareness of our shared humanity, this new platform that we have to respond to immediate, tangible needs, and continue that, because people are still going to need kindness. People are still going to need help. We still belong to each other, even when there's not a global pandemic.
Everything that goes on in this room is about that stage. Whatever's up there is why you're here. That's the only reason you're here. It was not being with people and not sharing art and ideas and emotions, energy, connection. I'm Derek Sitter. I'm the owner, operator, talent buyer, booker, marketer of Volcanic Theater Puppets. We had a show on Sunday, March 8th. And then I think it was like the 10th of March, I got an email regarding my Thursday show that, hey, looks like we're going to have to postpone this show. And I'm like, well, why? And they go, well, this COVID thing, there was nothing on the calendar, zero. The communications with agents and artists just stopped because there was such a huge level of uncertainty that nobody's going to jump on a tour bus or a Sprinter van and take a risk of whether or not they're going to be able to even have an event. So we just closed. And I'm like at home for months. Fortunately, I think I wrote now 4 screenplays. I don't run a venue to make money. I'm not an actor or a director or a writer to make money. That is a byproduct of doing something good. So for me to be negligent and open up my venue just so I can make some dollars would have been terribly irresponsible for me. It would have put my friends, attendees, my family at risk of perhaps getting a disease and dying from it. That's a no-brainer. Close down. Volcanic's still here. We're sitting in here. It's better than it was before because I had time on my hand, so I remodeled the green room. Now it's way more functional. I did sound proofing. Now we have the ability to stream. That's because that's where the market's going to go. So even if you're limited capacity, hey, log online. I'm booking local artists because nobody's really traveling right now, but I am getting communication now from agents. Can we get holds on this date? Hey, can we get holds on this date? Many are for 2022, but some are like urgent. Like, hey, how about July? I'm like, man, I don't know what July is going to look like, but yeah, let's hold the date. Now we're lucky enough, we also have an outdoor patio area. So, and the huge door will be open, the front doors will be open, so people will also be outside and be masked, they can feel safe. And then the people indoors with an empty room with no seating, there's plenty of room to distance. 100 people is going to be, when we've done it, it's very simple to keep them distanced, and I'm pretty strict. I'm the jerk in the room who's going to say, put your mask on, step back. Yeah, I think everyone's more than ready, and I'm more than ready. And that experience and that energy of everybody in this room sharing that is irreplaceable. I mean, we've been without that for over a year.
Staying where we were really couldn't be an option unless the business was going to pull back. And I knew that COVID would at some point not be a factor. And I made the choice to take the risk to grow. When I sold at farmers markets, I had a very unmemorable name. Everyone called me the deodorant lady because they couldn't remember the name of my product. And I would always come up with these really stupid puns on Instagram, and I came up with Smarty Pits, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a great hashtag campaign. I'm like, no, that would be a great brand name. I'm Stacia Guzzo, and I'm the CEO and founder of Smarty Pits deodorant. I started it on my stovetop, making 6 deodorants at a time, and now we make thousands a day. I personally had been looking to move outside of California for a few years. In October of 2019, I hired on my vice president of sales and business development, who is a Bend native. And that got us into conversations about how Bend truly supports entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial community. I was in Central California in a little town called Tehachapi. We had been looking for a few years to see if there were other warehouses that we could pursue, and there just wasn't anything of this size. The labor pool also was fairly limited. There has been a drop-off. I would say not as much as things like lipstick. We're seeing it pick back up now as people get back outside. Post-coronavirus, things have changed a little bit with people being home so much, but still the domestic US market is almost $6 billion for antiperspirant and personal care. Now, the natural side of that is about between 20 and 25%. Starting from the ground up and teaching from the very beginning how to hit the quality standards that I needed for my product felt a little bit overwhelming in the beginning. Fortunately, our staff has been so incredible. I have people on my staff that are better pourers than I am at this point, and that's only 2.5 months in, and I'm so proud of how far we've come. Again, I couldn't do it without them. The inspiration for the product comes from my mom's experience with breast cancer. She discovered the lump right underneath her armpit, and we had no family history of breast cancer. So as she began to undergo her treatments, I started to do some research. That was the first time I learned that aluminum and antiperspirant could be a risk factor for both breast cancer and Alzheimer's disease. Thankfully, she is a survivor. I don't think that any entrepreneur that is in it for growing their business as much as they can is risk averse. Knowing that there was a community that I could come to that would support the entrepreneurial journey, that would understand the ups and downs and the roller coaster of it. One of the things that I found here in Bend is that people love living here and they come to work happier. If I can provide a space where they're happy when they're here and they're happy when they go home, I can't ask for anything more. Moving a business is intimidating in general, so knowing that I was coming to a community where I would get that kind of support was so important.